Welcome into a ACC Big Four edition of the Desmond Johnson Show here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. Isaac Schade in the house, Locked on Heels podcast host, friend of the program. He's going to get us situated here. Carolina defeating Central Arkansas last night in a blowout to open the 2025-26 season. We got him in the house. Conor Oneil from Devils Illustrated and Deacons Illustrated will come by. We'll talk about Wake Forest's win against American last night and get us ready for Duke versus Texas tonight. So if you're ready for ACC hoops, it has arrived. College basketball season is here. It is tipped off, and we've got you covered here on the Desmond Johnson Show. Let's roll that intro.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
Yeah, welcome to the Carolinas. Everywhere you go, the sky is Carolina blue, the finest. Live action, feedback, the city need that. I've been #1, no cap. Here's the recap. Adrenaline is my addiction. I'm about to relapse. Step on the turf if you won't and get your weed wet. I'm going harder than a martyr on the slaughter end. It's the heart of man, that's a rap like a cardigan. I'm breaking records, it's 4th and inches. I count the seconds. The over-under's my roar of thunder, my secret weapon. Yeah, the game is to be told. I don't break, I break modes. Follow me on Tobacco Road.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
And welcome into a new edition of the Desmond Johnson Show here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. It is November. It is also known as crossover season for those of us that work in the industry. Everything happening at the same time. World Series finally ended this past weekend with the Dodgers going back to back. But here in these parts, we're talking ACC hoops and got a lot to look forward to. My Carolina Tar Heels starting off the 2025-26 season with a rout over Central Arkansas last night, 94-54. Isaac Schade in the house, who is the host of Locked on Heels. If you're looking for good Tar Heels content, check him out over there. Isaac, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, Des, I'm doing good. It's great to be together. The college basketball season is off and running. God is good to us. Gosh, that World Series was bonkers on Saturday. I mean, good grief. But what a, you know what? The World Series, really all it was a lead in. It was a preamble, an appetizer for college basketball. Let's make it happen.
I'm still riding the wave of my Panthers defeating the Packers on Sunday.
Ooh,
so
that was crazy.
Yeah, I'm living La Vida Loca right now. So let's start off with Carolina. So watching them last night, and I was telling my buddy B Dot about this, who's the sixth man of Tar Heel basketball, and I was like, maybe he can relate to it. I've been a Tar Heel fan. I'm a diehard. I was raised in it. I'm 47. I've been a diehard Tar Heel basketball fan my entire life. This is probably the first year besides maybe 06 where I don't really know anybody on this team. Like, it's all brand new, like roster, except for Seth Trimble and James Brown, basically, are the only two that are really like back from from last year. Yeah. The biggest difference so far from last year, from watching that game last night, the size. Like, we were having teams playing volleyball with us last year, like literally, like just keeping the ball above our heads. And Brendan Marks from The Athletic had told me a couple weeks ago when he was on with David Glenn, he had been speaking to Hubert Davis for an article, and Hubert had told him the epiphany he had last year. He was in the huddle during a timeout, and he was talking to the 5 guys he had in front of him that were on the court. And Hubert's 6'5", and he was taller than all 5 of them. That were actually had to go out. He was like, "We need more size," and that from there is where it went on. Talk to me a little bit about how much bigger this UNC team is compared to last year.
One of the things we've seen it now, Desmond, both in the Central Arkansas game last night and in the 2 exhibition games, the BYU game and the Winston-Salem State game, with Carolina being so much bigger, we're seeing the return of the high-low passing. Like one of the first buckets of the game last night was Henry Vesar from the just free throw line extended down over the top to Caleb Wilson for that first dunk. By the way, 4 dunks in his first 3.5 minutes as a Tar Heel. Insane. But anyway, like
what's going on here?
Like just Carolina's brand new size was on full display last night. And the ability to just get it up, and whether that's the big-to-big passing, whether that's getting a ball up on the glass and letting Vesar go finish it, whatever that is, it was clear and obvious from tip to final whistle last night. And like immediately because of that, Desmond, you see the higher ceiling for this team. And I would say the higher floor as well. Now, I think the critical part that we do have to say, the caveat is just because you're taller doesn't mean you're better, right? They have to use that size to their advantage. I thought last night they did.
Yeah, it was crazy when I was sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, wow, the starting lineup has 6'10", 6'11", 7 foot on the front line. It might be one of the biggest in college basketball, forget ACC. And then you're bringing in guys that are 6'10", 6'11", or whatever. Like, I don't know who the backup to Bessar's going to be at center, but they've got enough bigs where they can have 2 forwards out there that are 6'10", 6'11", and not miss a beat. So Caleb Wilson, let's talk about him for a second, because he flashed last night. He just seems like he's just better than everybody on the floor. Not like arrogantly, but just like talent level wise. And he seems to know it at this point, which is incredible for an 18-year-old. He's one of the few where you look at him and you go, he could play in the league right now, like in the NBA. Like, he seems like he's got that all together. I've seen his workouts. I saw him in some of these other exhibition games where if that was the first exposure you had to Caleb Wilson, you probably think he's like a Shaq Light or something, because all he was doing was dunking last night. No, he can hit the three. He can put the ball on the floor. Like, he literally, I've seen the comparison to Marvin Williams, but I think he's more talented than Marvin Williams was back then. What part of Wilson's game excites you the most from what you've seen so far?
22 points last night, Desmond. And a lot of times you'll see a freshman put up that thing and is like, he got 22 points, but man, he needed like 20 shots to get there. This dude was so wildly efficient. 8 of 10 from the field, Des. 1 of 1 from beyond the arc, and 5 of 6 from the free throw line. I love that Caleb Wilson seems to know where his bread is buttered. He is a good, not elite 3-point shooter. So he's not going to go sit out there and chuck them till he makes a couple. He's going to get inside the lane. And part of it is that he clearly just loves to dunk. In fact, so much so that he had one that was too hard and rimmed off. And then there was the one where he and Seth Trimble, nobody could decide who was going to be the recipient of the Kyan Evans alley-oop. That was hilarious to me. But what I love is that first and foremost is he seems to be self-aware of what he's really good at offensively, and to do that. And the other thing is, it's one thing to say you love to play defense. It's another thing to actually really truly love to play defense. And it's clear that he has bought in on that end. And it's important for Carolina as a team that it's not just about him as an individual defender, but it's as you bring together this grouping of, all of these new players. You just talked about it a second ago with basically nobody other than Seth and JB returning, Zayden High coming back this year. Desmond, this Carolina team had 13 steals last night. That is tied for the most in a Hubert Davis era. With that team that would finish the season 8th in defensive efficiency at Ken Palm 2 seasons ago when they were a 1 seed. So I love that about Caleb Wilson's game. He's a true two-way player, and Carolina needs that from him all season long.
Schade joining us here, Lock on Heels podcast host. If you want to hear some Tar Heel news through the week, go check him out over there. Luka Bogovac got cleared basically 30 minutes before the tip-off of this game on Monday. Thoughts on his game and how it fits in UNC's system? 10 points, 6'6", so a larger guard. I could see him eventually possibly starting, not over Seth, maybe over Kyan Evans. I'm not sure. That was actually my next question: is who's the point guard of this team? So tell me a little bit about Luka from what you know from this.
Yeah, my thought is that it's going to be in place of Jaren Stevenson actually eventually when he slides in.
Like
my take actually on my show today was, I don't think you do it for the Kansas game. I think you just ride with who got you there. But then you've got 3 bye games after that, all at home ahead of the Fort Myers tip-off during Thanksgiving week. That's when I would start slotting him into the starting lineup. The projection for the season is that it's Kyan Evans, Seth Trimble, and Luka Bogovac as your 1, 2, and 3, with Wilson and Vesar at the 4 and 5, and then that alleviates some of that backup big conversation we were talking about just a second ago.
Yeah.
What Bogovac brings to the table is this veteran savvy, right? It's like he's not uber athlete like Caleb Wilson, like Seth Trimble, but Desmond, it's almost like he's that savvy veteran at the YMCA who it's like, you're how are you beating me right now?
Because exactly what I thought was,
kind of similar, like to a Luka Doncic, another Luka Doncic. You look at him, you're like, dude, you're like the Pillsbury Doughboy. How are you beating me right now?
Yeah.
But that Luka just has that European savvy where he can do what he needs to do. We saw it in this game last night, dude. Tied for the team lead in assists with Kyan Evans, 5 assists, just 1 turnover. The shot's going to be better, right? Like he didn't shoot all that well last night, but imagine you just find out right before tip-off that you're going to be eligible to play, you go shoot really well on that night, right? Like, no, come on, what are we doing? Better days ahead from beyond the arc. You see how quick his trigger is. It's incredible. He's shot ready. He's ready to go at a moment's notice. Lucas still got to 10 points last night, 3 boards, 5 assists, and again, just that 1 turnover plus 2 steals. He is going to bring veteran savvy to help lead this team in a way that Seth Trimble will be able to do, for example.
Speaking of Seth, him being the senior on this team, and one of the reasons why I'm a huge Carolina fan is that traditionally at Carolina, you kind of get to see a player grow, like from freshman year to whenever they eventually leave, if they become really, really good. But my favorites have always been the ones that have been their freshman to senior year. And by the time you get to senior year, they just look different. Like they move different. They move with so much more confidence. And I'm seeing that in Seth when I see him drive into the lane or going up for a dunk or whatever it might be, or a shot selection. He seems to be more confident than I've ever seen him. Do you consider Seth the de facto leader of this team? And how much do you expect him to take the senior leap this year?
100%. He is this team's leader and captain. Caleb Wilson might be the leading scorer. This is Seth Trimble's team, if I can separate it that way. That, to me, last year was one of Carolina's, in addition to the height, one of their single biggest bugaboos is they didn't have a vocal on the court leader. Yes, RJ can do it, but he's a lead by example kind of guy. Yeah. Think about that 1 seed 2 years ago. You're out there with Harrison Ingram and Cormac Ryan not messing around, right? They had that leadership with those guys. Brady Manick in Coach Davis's first year, right? Holding everyone accountable, being that voice to say, we've got to be better, dudes. That's Seth Trimble this year. Not only is he capable of it, he is leaning into it and wants to be that leader, Desmond. And yes, we see him taking that leap. I loved the first offensive possession of the game. Caleb Wilson draws a lot of gravity, kicks it in the corner to a wide open Seth Trimble, who doesn't settle for a 3. What does he do? Drives the baseline, gets the ball up on the rim, doesn't make it, but Henry Vasar is right there to finish with a tip dunk because of all the gravity that Seth Trimble drew at the rim. Yes, senior Seth Trimble is the leader for this team.
And then, of course, Carolina taking on Kansas in a huge matchup at the Deanie Smith Center on Friday, 7 o'clock tip-off on ESPN. What's the ceiling for Carolina this year? You kind of touched on it at the very beginning of this segment, but that their ceiling might be higher than what people anticipate. But after watching last night, and I know it's not exactly a good litmus test, being Central Arkansas, we'll get a better feel Friday after they see Kansas. But what do you think, just inside, as a person that reports on Carolina basketball, you talk about them every week, you know the insides and outs of them, and you've seen Hubert's teams over the past couple of years. This one seems like the first team that's truly Hubert's roster. Like he's not dealing with remnants from the previous regimes or whatnot. And he's literally, this is all him, except for Seth and James Brown, who he probably helped recruit. So everything else is somebody he went out and got in the portal or he recruited in his freshman class. This is Hubert's team finally for the first time. What do you think the ceiling is for Carolina this year?
Quite literally, because it's the first time Carolina has not had a guy named RJ Davis in the lineup since March 11th of 2020. That's how long it's been, right?
Somebody told me that the Carolina-Syracuse ACC tournament game in Greensboro, when COVID happened the next day, that was the last game Carolina had played without RJ Davis in the lineup.
Yeah, so that's that date I was just referencing. Yeah. That was that game. And so, I mean, literally to your point, this is finally now fully Hubert Davis's team. I think the ceiling for this team is as high as it was 2 seasons ago when they wound up as a 1 seed. This should be the best regular season, in contention with that year of the Hubert Davis era. I feel like some of that is it's an easier non-con schedule. Let's be honest about that. Last year they overcooked it a little bit. This year they've got themselves in position where they've got some tough games. This Kansas game is going to be a massive litmus test. Darren Peterson is a dude. How's Carolina going to guard him? Will it be Seth, who's shorter than him? Will it be Jaron Stevenson, who's a great defender? We'll see. But then they've got to go to Rupp Arena, right? So those two are the biggest tests in my mind, along with the Michigan State game, just a slight tier down from that. But I do fully think this is a top 3 ACC team, with all due respect to NC State. I think NC State comes in just behind Carolina in the ACC pecking order. And then I think Carolina, if they're feeling good about themselves, if they go into ACC play at 12-1 or 11-2. And I know that sounds like a big number, but again, part of it is because it's not as difficult a strength of schedule non-con as last year. I do think this is a very, very good North Carolina team. Now, a little bit of patience, I'll caution, because as you said earlier, so many new parts, including a guy who was just cleared 30 minutes before tip-off on Monday night. But once it all comes together, look out. This Carolina team is loaded.
There you go. So there it is. Isaac Schade from Locked on Heels. Carolina taking on Kansas in a matchup of Blue Bloods on Friday, 7 o'clock tip-off on ESPN. I can't completely announce it yet, but I'll have some huge news regarding North Carolina men's basketball hoops and Believe podcast networks. I'll have a huge announcement for that probably later on this week. There's still some things getting taken care of. But if you're a Tar Heel fan and you're from the state of North Carolina, you definitely want to hear this announcement when we put it out. It should be huge for what we have planned for that. Isaac, appreciate you coming through. Enjoy the season. I want to bring you back through as we get a little bit deeper into it, probably after Thanksgiving, and we'll get a better gauge of these Tar Heels and see where they are.
We will certainly know. Thank you, Desmond.
So coming up next, Conor Oneil from Devils Illustrated and Deacons Illustrated will get us set up. Wake Forest played last night. Duke plays tonight against Texas. He'll get us ready for both here on the Desmond Johnson Show. All right, so that was Isaac Schade from Locked on Heels podcast joining us to give us a recap of North Carolina's opening big win against Central Arkansas. Got in our good buddy Conor Oneil in the house, Devils and Deacons Illustrated publisher, and this is the slow time of the year for Conor. Not a whole lot going on, just a little college basketball, a little college football, a little bit of everything. What's going on, Conor? How you doing, man?
I put this on my Twitter bio the other day. I'd rather be busy than bored. So definitely not bored this time of year.
Yeah, that is true. It is crossover season for those of us in the industry, and college basketball tipped off last night across the country. Got some more tonight. Brought in Conor to talk a little bit about first last night and Wake Forest, because this is one of those years. I was just telling Isaac this. It's not just Carolina. For me, it kind of feels like college basketball as a whole the past couple years for me, where I'm so used to knowing that kid that's been there 3 years, 4 years, at whatever school it is, whoever that star is, you've watched them grow from freshman year to senior year. And it feels like this year in particular is the one year where NIL and the portal and all this stuff kind of has melted together to create this atmosphere where I don't think I'm the only one when I sit here and say that I don't really know the roster for Carolina in terms of how they are, the players. I don't really know them. I think a lot of fan bases are in this conjecture right now. And just starting off with Wake, they defeated American last night at the Joel to start the season 88-74. In your mind, you're talking to Wake Forest fans that may not be familiar with this roster or didn't watch the game last night. Who's the most important player on this roster for Wake Forest this year and why?
I'm going to go with a little bit of a cop-out. I think it's two, and I'll give you a splice of both. They've got a returner, Juke Harris, who was a freshman last year, and he was a freshman on a team that was going to be led by 3 seniors with Hunter Salas, Cam Hildreth, and Efton Reed. And those 3 are obviously gone. Juke gets to step into larger shoes now, and I think he's primed for a sophomore jump. I can say that I was saying that before he had 18 and 7 last night. 18 is one more than he had in any game last year. So he's off to a good start. And then the second piece that I would add there is Makai Mason. And he's a transfer from Washington. Spent 2 years at Rice and then Washington last year. He was about a 10-point-a-game scorer for Washington. They didn't have that great of a season. But he's really smooth. And if we know anything about Steve Forbes and the way that he kind of operates and moves in the offseason and in the portal, he can find a guard who was maybe underused or didn't have the biggest role at his previous place. He can bring them in the portal and give them all the freedom that they want to play fast and to play pretty free within the offense. It's a different offense, but it's still that same kind of principle of, if you're a transfer guard and Wake Forest is interested in telling you that, hey, we see you in this type of role with us, they're getting some guys to listen to that. And that's where Makai Mason, he had 20 and 10 last night. I don't know if you can expect 10 rebounds out of him every night. And he told us after the game that some of those balls just kind of fell into his lap because everybody else was boxing out. But it's a good start for those two.
So I noticed that Wake Forest got picked 11th in the ACC preseason poll this year, where they haven't finished below 5th since 2024 with a different roster basically every year under Steve Forbes. He goes in the portal, he pulls out kids, and they do Steve Forbes things. Are we overlooking Wake Forest, or is that where you think they may land towards the bottom third of the ACC?
I picked them, I think 7th. I think they'll be right in there. Like the kind of realistic expectations for the ACC and NCAA tournament bids is around 6 or 7. I think maybe that's a little cautiously optimistic. So I think, again, Wake Forest will be kind of knocking on the door of that elusive tournament bid under Steve. But it's like throwing darts in the dark with the preseason ACC picks. I mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you the tiers of it. Like, I had Duke and Louisville, as I knew those were going to be my 1 and 2. I ended up picking Louisville to win the league.
Hmm.
And then I watched Duke in the exhibition games, and it was like, oh, wow, that team can go to Tennessee and look like they actually can play against some grown men. And they have 4 or 5 freshmen in the rotation. I knew that, tier 2 is going to be your Carolina. I think of Clemson in there because I think Brad Brownell has kind of earned the benefit of the doubt. SMU is in there. NC State's in there. I love what NC State and Virginia did in the portal. But if we get 3 months down the road and you tell me that things haven't worked out with either Will Wade at NC State or Ryan Odom at UVA, I don't know how shocked any of us would really be at that. Like, they're entirely new staffs, they're entirely new rosters, and sometimes it doesn't gel. So I can level with some people that think this is a Wake team that kind of takes a step backward from where they've been the last couple of years.
Having said that, do you think that it's weird to say it, because even though they had issues getting into the tournament, the Big Dance, Steve Forbes has brought some pretty good success to Wake Forest considering where they were before he got there. And you got to understand, when he came in during COVID. So it was like he kind of has always been a step or two behind, it feels like, this whole time. And he's dealing with the smallest Division I school by population or whatever it is too. And it brings up a situation where it's kind of hard to do some of this stuff. Now, granted, people have had success coaching at Wake Forest in the past for sure, but they've kind of just, in my opinion, it's almost like they got either really good at locally recruiting, like way back in the day, like a Muggsy Bogues or Rodney Rogers or something like that, where they stayed on the Eastern Seaboard, or they always had in. If Carolina had the number 1 prep player in the state, Wake had like the number 3 guy or the 4 guy or something like that. Like, they were always recruiting locally very, very well. Now with the portal, it changes a lot of that. Steve Forbes kind of came in with that idea of, he was using JUCO players and stuff like that before, so he had a little bit of a runway in front of him. Do you think this is a make or break year for Steve Forbes? Like, do you think Wake would make a move if they say they don't make the tournament?
It's a nuanced conversation. It really is. I think I had somebody come up to me in the press room last night and say, this is a big year for Steve, and he knows it. And it's like, I get that. The irony would not be lost on me that last year they had all these expectations with a big returning core, and they were supposed to have these transfers fit into these slots. And by definition of not making the NCAA tournament, last year was a bit of a failure. That team did not play as well as we thought they would. They did not win the games down the stretch that they needed to win. At the same time, they were a team that couldn't throw the ball in the ocean from 3-point range and still won 21 games and still finished in 4th place in the ACC.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the Wake Forest discussion is tied into how bad the ACC has been in the last 4 or 5 years, and how it's progressively gotten even worse. And it's kind of been on this decline since 2019, when they had 3 number 1 seeds and Virginia went and won the NCAA tournament, and they didn't even play for the championship in the ACC tournament in Charlotte that year. That's how deep and loaded that league was. So I think it is an important year for Steve. I don't see Wake Forest making a move unless they completely bottom out and put up something like a 7-23, like the type of season that Jim Larrañaga basically got to Christmas last year and said, that's it, I'm out, I'm done. I don't see that happening with this team. I think they're too talented. I think this coaching staff is too dialed into modern college basketball. I understand the frustration from Wake fans. Like if they see another 19-win season with mid-February, it looks like they're going to be on the right side of the bubble, and then they drop 2 or 3 games that they feel like they have no business losing, like the Florida State game last year where they're up 15 or so or whatever that was with 10 minutes left.
Seems to be the recipe. Yeah.
That'll be a problem, but I don't know if that's enough to say to a guy that, they've won, I can't remember the number off the top of my head. I think it's something combined like 86 or 87 games in the last 4 seasons. And that's a program that think about how desperate they were for a complete decade to win even half of their ACC games. And last year they were 13-7 in the ACC.
I mean, it feels like this is
difficult conversation, man.
Yeah, I know Steve Forbes. He's a great coach, great guy. I know he's gone through a lot personally with his wife and everything else in terms of her physical stuff going on the past year, and I'm sure that's weighed heavily on his mind there too. So I don't know if it's a situation where Forbes might step down or something to that effect. And I don't want to put that into the atmosphere. I feel like he's here for the long haul, but it does feel like there's a weird weight over at Wake Forest in terms of the expectations maybe being higher than what they may actually achieve ceiling wise. Real quick before I get you out of here, Duke taking number 6 ranked Duke taking on Texas tonight on ESPN. It's a 8:45 tip. It's the Dick Vitale Invitational. Give me the most important player on the Duke roster not named Cameron Boozer.
I'm glad you said not named Cam Boozer because it's just such a layup. I'll go Isaiah Evans.
He was actually my next question.
Yeah, Isaiah Evans has this little bit of there's a running joke about Webb Simpson being able to claim like 8 different North Carolina places as his hometown because he played at Wake and grew up in Raleigh, but he like went to college in Winston-Salem, and I think he lives in Charlotte now, and he's a member at a couple different courses. Isaiah has a little bit of Webb Simpson in him. Like he's from Fayetteville. He's from around what is it down there? Is it 910?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Or 919. I can't remember. It's one of the two.
91. I always thought 919 was like Durham and Raleigh.
Yeah. I think 919 is like Central North Carolina, like the Triangle. Yeah, I think you're right. I think 910 is what it is down there now.
But like he's from Fayetteville, but he went to high school at North Mech, so he can claim a little bit of Charlotte as his hometown too. And they played when Duke played in the ACC tournament in the same building they're going to be playing in tonight in the Spectrum Center. They were kind of on the ropes against Georgia Tech in that first game. That was when Malik Brown re-injured his shoulder. Cooper Flagg went down with the ankle injury.
Yeah.
Isaiah came in and banged 4 threes and kind of got Duke past the woes of, oh my God, they're going to lose their first ACC tournament game after this magical regular season that they just had. So I want to see Isaiah in his new role. He had a great second half in the exhibition at Tennessee. Not just shooting threes. It's the key for him is driving the ball and putting the ball on the deck. Everybody knows he can shoot, and that's going to lead to a lot of people closing out really, really hard on him. He's going to have to put it on the deck and go past people. And he showed that he could do that against Tennessee. And so that's what I'll be looking for tonight against another team in orange.
I did feel like last year in particular, because he was kind of in and out of the lineup. He fell out of rotation for a little bit. And then somewhere around February, March, like you said, like he started to come on. It wasn't so much his shot selection. It was really his defense that kept him on the floor. Like he really, especially during their tournament run, it felt like he always had some kind of key steal or defensive play or something at the end of a game that kind of helped Duke advance. And to me, that's kind of where he still got to me. And I know he was a top North Carolina prep player. So I was really curious about your thoughts with him. So that was actually my next question. So you actually answered that in advance. That's why Conor is one of the best in the business. Publisher of Devils and Deacons Illustrated, Conor Oneil in the house. Before I get you out of here, though, Duke's ranked in the top 10. And only ACC school ranked in the top 10. If I'm not mistaken, there's only 3 teams ranked in the ACC. Duke at 6, I think Louisville's at 11, and Carolina's at 25. What do you think Duke's ceiling is this year? Because clearly they're not the team that they had last year, where one of their Sion James is starting for Charlotte Hornets right now. Like literally that starting lineup might go down as one of the best starting lineups in Duke history, especially one that did not win a title. Where do you think the ceiling is for Duke this year? Like, where do you think the expectations are?
I think this team can win a national championship. It's just a matter of the margin for error is smaller than it was last year. it wasn't an inevitability. I mean, they had to play well to beat Arizona and Alabama last year in Newark to get to San Antonio, but it felt, parts of watching Duke play last year felt inevitable. I told somebody on Twitter the other day that, they had a way of making extraordinary accomplishments seem mundane just because of how matter of fact and business like they were. This team is not going to have that luxury. Like one of the key things that I've pointed out is, last year they go through about 2.5 months of the season playing Common Malawach, who's a future top 10 pick at center, and having Malik Brown, one of the best defensive players in the country, come off the bench and spell him minutes at the 5. And then Malik Brown goes down in January, and it's like, oh no, their 5 is down. Like, they can't play Common Malawach 40 minutes a night. They didn't want to play Cooper Flagg at the 5 because of how well he fit at his other position. And like, oh, well, they'll just turn to Patrick Gongba, who is going to wind up looking like he's a great future prospect. Like, he comes in and he has great hands, great feet. He's mobile. He's got a little bit of a mean streak in him, and they don't have that on this roster. Like, the backup 5 is Cam Boozer, and he's playing the 4. There's just, you don't have a Sion James if Caleb Foster struggles as a starting point guard. You're not turning to a guy who has played a ton of basketball at Tulane and knows how to win games and is a physical specimen the way Sion is. Like, you're turning to Caden Boozer, who might be really good, but he's a freshman, and he's a freshman point guard. That's a lot to ask of a freshman. So margin for error is smaller. Duke does not have to be as good as they were last year to win a national championship, because honestly, I don't know if there's a team in college basketball this year that is as good as any of the 4 that were in San Antonio last year.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's still a bunch of grown men playing basketball sitting out there. And then I know Purdue's got the best odds going into this season. Florida just got beat last night, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So it's kind of out there. And again, people are sleeping on the Heels. I know they're ranked number 25, but I think they got used to them playing Smurf ball for the past like 2 or 3 years. And it feels like Hubert kind of got back to the roots. And I literally watched 6'10", 6'11" guys just coming in waves yesterday. So it felt so good watching height actually be back in Chapel Hill. So I think the top of the league is actually be pretty strong between Duke, Louisville, and Carolina. Interested to see about NC State and Will Wade. He's talked a lot of talk in the offseason, which usually doesn't bode well for whoever the NC State head coach is. So we'll see if that bucks the trend there. And then you got a gut like in the middle of the ACC. I do agree with you where the conference has been down the past couple of years, or really since COVID. Pre-COVID was really the peak of it. And then it's kind of been treading water as the SEC and the Big Ten have started dumping money into these basketball programs. Who knew coming out the other side of COVID that Alabama would have a fantastic football and basketball program that they show off to everybody? Like, I don't know if that was really in our bingo cards, but that's kind of the world we live in now. Same for like an Auburn or whoever. So we'll see. But tonight, Duke taking on Texas, 6th-ranked Duke taking on Texas tonight in the Dickie V Invitational. It's at 8:45 tip on ESPN, which makes me think that there's a game before it, which also makes me think it's not going to tip at 8:45. So
it's the college football playoff rankings.
Oh, okay, I got you. So they will go at 8:45. Yeah,
I think the rankings reveal is at 8. I'm not. I would want to double check that, but tonight is definitely the first rankings reveal for the CFP.
Yeah, they do have it on here at 8 o'clock. You're right. So it's at 8 o'clock on ESPN. And I assume that's going to run all the way to 8:45. And then from there, they'll shift it over to Duke and Texas. So you can catch that there. You can catch Conor Oneil's work at Devils Illustrated and Deacons Illustrated all season long. College football is not over. You still got Duke and Wake Forest, 2 feisty teams vying for position for postseason play as well. So definitely go and check him out over there. And Conor, we appreciate everything you do, man.
Yeah, thanks, Des.
All right, so that's it for Tuesday's edition of the Desmond Johnson Show. We'll be back tomorrow. Mark Pruitt will be on, give us his big 3. State football playoffs for high school have begun. They will start this Friday. The brackets are out. Me and Mark will kind of look over some of those brackets, some of the local teams, and see who we think might be able to get all the way to the state championship weekend in December. And Chris Lee from WRL will join me, co-host of Panthers Playbook. We'll talk a little Carolina Panthers. them defeating the Packers in an upset win, walk-off win, 16-13 on Sunday. And we'll look ahead to the Panthers being favored for the first time this season against the New Orleans Saints at Bank of America Stadium this upcoming Sunday. So we'll see you tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. live. Rate and subscribe at youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio or any major podcast platform. We will see you guys tomorrow afternoon.